Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your space for black news, views, and opinions. Today is Wednesday, February 9th. I'm Seth Lemon.
I'm Nielle.
I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo. And on today's report, jury selection could conclude in the federal hate crimes trial against Ahmaud Arbery's killers, just 2 days into the process. Meanwhile, in an incident strikingly similar to the Arbery case, 2 white men were accused of chasing down and shooting at a FedEx driver in Mississippi. The driver and his attorney join us live today. Then, analysts predict the Voting Rights Act of 1965 could be null and void by year 2024, who experts say should be blamed.
Plus, it's getting hot in her. Sunday is supposed to be a scorcher. How the weather's already making this year's Super Bowl one for the history books. And what do you get a man who has everything? Kevin Hart sends Nick Cannon a thoughtful gift to make sure he has a safe Valentine's Day.
Uh-oh, we have all that and so much more, and you know how we do it in our voice and in our truth. So let's get to it.
Welcome in on this Wednesday. The first phase of jury selection for the federal hate crimes trial of Ahmaud Arbery's murderers could wrap as early as today, just 2 days in. The process began Monday. The judge herself did much of the questioning. Of 52 potential jurists, 30 were told to return to court next week in the trial of the 3 white men convicted of murdering Arbery, a black man who was chased and shot while jogging in a Georgia neighborhood back in 2020. The men have already been sentenced to life in state prison after their claims of self-defense were rejected by a jury. The McMichaels are not eligible for parole, but of course we are seeing this play out in such an interesting way now that those plea agreements that were submitted by federal prosecutors were denied, and the case is now playing out.
We do know that the family has been in the courtroom. They are reportedly happy with the turnout makeup of the jury selection thus far. There's a lot going on with who was selected, how many people could not be eligible to be on the jury, and some of them, 87 people questioned, they seem to have some knowledge of the killing. So I'm wondering, how will that affect and have an impartial trial if so many people have already heard about this case?
Yeah, I agree. You think about it as we go into this and move forward to the next trial. People know what happened on the first one, right? They know what he did. The video's out there. It should be a closed case. It should be a done deal. That's in my eyes. And I'm sure a lot of our soulmates' opinions, we just want to get past this so the family can truly start healing. All right, soulmates, 6 predominantly black schools were evacuated this morning in Washington, D.C. after bomb threats were called in. This comes a day after the Secret Service ushered the second gentleman out of a room at a D.C. high school Tuesday because of a bomb threat. Douglas Emhoff was attending a Black History event at Dunbar High School. Vice President Harris was not with him at the time. The building was evacuated and the school was swept for explosives. Police say the threat was made by phone. It is unclear if anything was found during the sweep. So here we go. We're thinking about what's going on with the HBCU school. We'll talk about those later. And now this. It's truly clear what they're trying to do. White supremacists are out there. People are upset with the changes that are being made, with the groundbreaking things that are happening with Black America, and they're showing it with things like this.
I wonder how much of this is a copycat crime. People are seeing, what's been happening with the HBCU bomb threats and seeing how much it's really impacted daily life for students there, and whether some folks are thinking that this is something that they could employ at high school levels as well, because there were a number of schools. We saw Dunbar evacuated yesterday with Emhoff, and now Dunbar as well again today, and 5 other schools in DC, predominantly black city with a black school population. It's interesting to see this tactic being used against the same color people.
Absolutely. It would be really, what I would like to see is, if you really want to fight for something, use your words, use the law, study law, maybe be a lawyer if you want to fight for what you believe in so much. I think you make a great point about copycat crime, seeing how this affects us. So it's like, okay, let me try to do it again. But it's just kind of like, fight in a different way. Use your words meaningful if you really are passionate about something.
This is why it's so important for Black history and American history to be taught in schools, because bombing was a tactic used by white supremacists. We don't know who these individuals are, but it's important for us to know the trauma and impact this adds to African Americans, because it's so much a part of the history that we've been subject to in this white America.
On to our next story here. The chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus says a fellow representative told her to kiss his you-know-what on Tuesday after she asked him to wear a mask. Congresswoman Joyce Beatty says she and Republican Hal Rogers were about to ride the House subway when he made that comment. Now, Beatty says Rogers poked her in the back, demanding she get on the train when he cursed at her. Rogers tweeted late in the afternoon apologizing to his colleague. But Beatty says the incident is a prime example of what the disrespect looks like that black women have to endure all of the time. So like we said, he did apologize, but there are some cases when an apology just isn't even enough. How did this man go his entire life thinking that this type of behavior could be tolerated? And so Joyce Beatty hopped on CNN and also said maybe the question is, had a black man poked a white woman and then told her to kiss his blank, you tell me what would have happened in that scenario. And I think it would have been much more different than just an apology online.
Yeah, how does this happen? It's called white privilege. And they do it all the time to us. And to the point, like Chair Beatty says, if this would have been the opposite, and if we were back in another time of history, he probably would have, the black man, if he would have did this to a white woman, would have been lynched. And it's just so many things rise up when we have these things happen to us, because it's so much of our history and reminiscent of things in the past, and it seems like everything is just coming full circle again.
I agree with that. At the end of the day, he messed with the wrong one, right? That's what he did. And we got to think about this moving forward. How do we cut this situation down? How do we go back and make things a little bit better? He can't turn this back. If he had a bad day, it is what it is. But this should have never happened.
It's just really childish to think that people in Congress are poking each other and saying to kiss my ass.
Yeah.
Like, really grow up. Grow up.
Right. The Congressional Black Caucus is pressing the Justice Department to increase its efforts to protect voting rights. House members Ayanna Priestley and James Clyburn wrote a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland asking him to enforce every law available to ensure all citizens can vote. The DOJ has sued Georgia and Texas over controversial laws that restrict the right to vote.
In other news about voting rights, political analysts say the U.S. Supreme Court allowing Alabama's redistricting map to stay in place temporarily foreshadows a bad future for free and fair elections across the country. We told you about this ruling yesterday, a 5-4 vote that the Supreme Court made, allowing a congressional map drawn by the Alabama GOP to remain in place, thereby freezing a lower court's ruling that said the map likely violates federal law and minimizes black residents' political power. Because of this ruling, analysts say the Voting Rights Act of 1965 could be completely gutted by 2024. The 3 liberal justices on the high court warned that if the Supreme Court fully accepts Alabama's legal rationale, it would rewrite decades of court precedent. Now, this is especially true for parts of the law that were specifically meant to protect minorities and give them equal access to voting. That's the reason that the Voting Rights Act was passed, because there were some states that had done things traditionally that disenfranchised groups of voters.
Federal law is so important. And, you know, as our elders say, you know, we know Dr. King, Rosa Parks, Fannie Lou Hamer, Dorothy Heights, they're rolling over in their graves because they fought so hard. So many people were battered, beaten, and bruised to make sure that we have the right to vote. And it's just real sad and sickening that white Republican lawmakers on Capitol Hill see this and they don't have any compassion for people of color when it comes to the right to vote in this nation.
Yeah, I mean, we're a country that's talking about moving forward, and now you're telling me we could be going back 60 years and having to go through this again. Like you said, Neil, what they fought for. This is such a disgrace. And some of these states, we're going to win those battles, but this is one that doesn't look like we are.
You know, what's so interesting to me is that all of that is done to try to disenfranchise black voters. There are going to be some white voters, white older voters, that are also going to be affected as well. So I think that until that happens, when some of the older white voters are, you know, just some white voters as well are you know, they don't get, I can't think of the word I'm trying to say, but when they're also disenfranchised, we'll say, but when they have the opportunity to lose their voting rights as well, these white people, that's when they're really going to feel it. I think that's what I'm trying to, it's in my head, but I can't get it out fully.
It's up to the Senate now to keep the government from shutting down. The House Tuesday passed a stopgap bill to give Congress more time to agree to a deal to keep the government open for the rest of the fiscal year. But it won't last long. The government will stay funded through March 11th. So Congress has 3 more weeks to finalize a package that will last for the 2022 fiscal year.
Officials at Spelman College decided to suspend classes yesterday after receiving a bomb threat targeting the campus. Just last week, nearly 20 HBCUs throughout the country received similar threats over the course of 2 days. The Department of Homeland Security, the Justice Department, and the FBI are now working with state and local agencies to investigate these threats, which started at the beginning of Black History Month. The Southern Poverty Law Center hosted an online forum today to address the growing concern for student safety.
In an incident that is very eerily reminiscent of the Ahmaud Arbery case, 2 white Mississippi men are being charged with chasing a black FedEx driver and shooting at him. DeMontario Gibson says he was delivering a package last month when a pickup truck approached him, blowing its horn and trying to cut him off as he drove away from his delivery location. And he says then another man in the street fired a gun at him. Now, Gregory Case and his son Brandon face assault charges. They were arrested and released on bond. But Gibson says police did not take him seriously when he reported this dangerous encounter. And now he joins us here on the Black Report live. DeMontario Gibson, along with his attorney and president of the National Bar Association, Carlos Moore. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. I want to first ask you, Mr. Gibson, if you could tell us in your own words what happened that day last month while you were delivering packages. We know it was in Brookhaven, Mississippi. It's around 7 p.m. in January, so I'm imagining it's a little dark outside.
Yes, sir. So basically what I was doing was I was delivering packages on my normal route. And this day, this day, I put the wrong address in. So I typed in 427 Junior Trail. I was supposed to be delivering to 4. Wait, I typed in 427 Junior Trail. I was supposed to be delivering to 417. So as I'm looking for the house, I can't find it. I turn around to try to leave the neighborhood, and I noticed 417 to my left on the mailbox. So I realized that might be the correct address. I confirmed it on my Leo to my work device. I turn around and around the yard to go deliver the package. I hop out, put the package at the front door, hop back in my van. As I'm leaving the yard, it's a white pickup truck approached me from behind, from my house on the same plot of land. And he gets like extremely close to me, start blowing his horn. I'm thinking they're just in his way, so I try to leave. As I'm trying to leave, he cut me off, or he tried to cut me off in a way, but my instincts kick in. I swerve around him. I drive down about 2 or 3 houses. There's another guy standing in the middle of the road with a gun pointing in my window. He's telling me, like, stop, no, like, mouth and words, stop using the hand like this. I shake my head, like, no. I start hiding behind the steering wheel because I'm not sure if he wants to shoot in the window or not. I'm just hoping he doesn't. As I swerve around him, though, he starts firing shots into the back of my van. I head out the neighborhood towards the end of the street, and one of my managers called me, and she hears some of the shots going off. I tell her that they're shooting at me, and she just, like, repeats what I said. Are they shooting at you? And I'm like, yes. She's like, okay, just hurry up, make it to the station as fast as you can. So as I'm leaving the city, I'm still driving extremely fast, trying to get out of there. And I noticed the white pickup truck still behind me. He basically chased me all the way to the highway out the city. After I got down about 10 or 15 minutes, so I called my other manager to let him know what was going on. And he was like, we'll file a police report in the morning, which it just didn't, I didn't feel like that was the right thing to do. So I called the dispatch myself. I tried to turn it in. I only got like a little bit of the story out. He cut me off. He asked me, like, were you at this address? I was like, yes, sir. He's like, well, we just got a report of a suspicious person at this address. I said, sir, I'm not a suspicious person. I'm a FedEx driver. I was just doing my job. I also let him know that they were shooting at me. He said they didn't tell him that. Of course, they wouldn't, though. And he basically just took my name down and gave it to my supervisor to let me finish my story. I went back to the station. They examined the van. There was bullet holes all in the back of the van. Inside the packages, more than we found a bullet fragment. It's basically like a rundown of the incident.
So they found the bullet holes in the vehicle, but you feel like police didn't take you seriously when you were first telling them what happened. What's the makeup of the neighborhood there for our viewers around the country? What is Brookhaven, Mississippi like?
Depending on which part you're going, it is like, I feel like that neighborhood was one of the better neighborhoods. The police actually mentioned that himself. People like, we usually don't have problems at that neighborhood, whatever that means. But I think it was like majority white from the neighborhood I was in. And the reason why I say they weren't taking me serious because the first I interacted with 3 officers. The first officer I interacted with, he was changing my story. Every time I told him, he was like, so you saying this? And I'm like, no, sir, this is what I said. He did that about 3 or 4 times until he finally got it right. The second officer I interacted with, he basically asked me, like, did I do anything to make them think I was suspicious? Like, what could I have done to make them think I was suspicious? Even if I did, you still can't take the law into your own hands, again, I say. And then the third officer, he just made me write a statement, and he actually took me back to the crime scene. if anybody doesn't know that. And go ahead.
Attorney Moore, I know it's got to be frustrating to hear that law enforcement didn't take your client's report seriously when he first called in after really being attacked violently like this. What's your strategy? What do you think the defense is going to try to say in this case, and how do you plan to approach it?
We believe that they will try to say he looked suspicious. He was just a black man doing his job. And had his full FedEx uniform on. And so we don't know why he was suspicious and why they took the law into their own hands. It is very reminiscent of the Ahmaud Arbery case. And so we're calling for charges to be upgraded to attempted murder, because that's what it was. These two individuals, father and son, Gregory and Brandon Case, acted in concert to take away the life of my client, Mr. Gibson. They need to be held fully accountable under the law.
It is very eerily similar to the Ahmaud Arbery case. How has that incident and what we're watching play out in the state trial and now in the federal hate crimes trial, how has that influenced your perception of this case as we see this kind of happening, this vigilantism almost, despite people saying not to do this, it's continuing around the country?
Yeah, I don't believe it's by coincidence. I believe it's a concerted effort across the country. And these white supremacists have been emboldened, and they will continue to do this unless we fight back with all the force that we have. And so I've asked the Department of Justice, as well as the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, to investigate this case and fully prosecute it for hate crime, because that's what it was, a hate crime, and it also needs to be prosecuted on the state level for attempted murder.
DeMontario, I want to ask you, you've seen the Ahmaud Arbery coverage as well. A young black man who was out jogging in a neighborhood and chased after similarly like you were. How has seeing that affected how you do your job in these neighborhoods where residents might not be that familiar with you?
I'll be honest with you. I'm not at work right now due to the fact that this has been like extremely traumatizing. I don't feel comfortable going to those neighborhoods anymore though, because I might be looking as suspicious in any white neighborhood I go to. You just never know, to be honest.
Yeah, it's scary. It's sad that you're putting your life on the line sometimes, it seems, just to do your job. Attorney Moore, what do you think has to change? We can see the DOJ trying to exert its effort, but even those prosecutors don't seem to be on the same page all the time with the families. What has to happen?
If I had that answer, I would be a wealthy man. We have to continue to fight the good fight, fight the battle every day, and try to wage a war against white supremacy. They are hell bent on taking us back to 1950 and 1960, and I say we are not going, not without a fight.
Absolutely. Just tell me, what's the status of the case right now? Where is it in the court system?
Right now, we are waiting for the cases to go before the municipal court in Brookhaven, and once they are bound over to the grand jury after preliminary hearing, the grand jury will bring back an indictment, hopefully, and I'm hoping it's attempted murder. Also, we're asking for the federal government to concurrently look at a hate crime and prosecute that if evidence warrants it.
All right. Well, Attorney Carlos Moore and DeMontario Gibson, we thank you very much for joining us here on the Black Report, and we wish you the best, and we are glad that you are safe.
Thank you.
Great interview, Seth, and we truly are glad he's safe. The Georgia State Senate has approved a bill paving the way for a statue of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas to be placed on the grounds of the state capitol. But critics cite his opposition to affirmative action and his siding with the majority in 2013 decision that struck down part of the Voting Rights Act as two reasons why he does not deserve a statue. Democrats also argue that lawmakers should not erect a monument of someone still on the bench. Supporters of Justice Thomas disagree. Justice Thomas is from Pinpoint, Georgia, and has served on the Supreme Court since 1991.
A man convicted for his role in the D.C. sniper shootings in 2012 is asking to be 2002 is asking to be resentenced. The Maryland Court of Appeals heard arguments today in the case of Lee Boyd Malvo. The attacks killed 10 people and injured 3 others. Malvo was 17 at the time of the crimes and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His lawyers argue he should be resentenced following a 2012 Supreme Court decision barring life sentences without parole for juvenile offenders. The appeals court has yet to rule on this case. There are some people surprisingly split about how they feel about this. We talk about it being a broken system when it comes to black people, but also at the end of the day, yes, he was only 17, but at 17, you have a moral compass. You know what you are doing at 17 years old. There's also a documentary that a lot of people have checked out. And when you look into the background of this young man, I don't know if I think that jail might be the
I don't know.
place.
I lived through this. I was in D.C.
Yeah.
I was 12 years old when this was happening, and this was a very tough time because as school children, we were learning how to duck and dodge bullets at the gas station and how to walk in zigzags to prevent, because that's what they were doing. They were using sniper guns to shoot at people, random people, for no reason. I'm not excited to see that he could be let out, and I'm sure that the PTSD that I and my fellow school kids who were growing up around that time that we experienced, I think that we would also be a little troubled about this.
I remember I lived through this as well, and I remember that it was his father or the guard, the man that he was with, that was really the mastermind behind this. So I think that there was a sense of him being taken advantage of or being led by the man that was in charge of this whole.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of blame placed on his father,
Yeah,
but as
exactly.
a child in D.C., being taught how not to be shot at the gas station and other places, that was very traumatic.
I mean, we remember it too.
And I think that at 17 years old, he knew better.
Well, we don't know that,
Well,
and he has the right to due process, so we'll see how it goes.